How you doing, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video I'm going to be continuing on with the Mini and let's see how we go. And that's me got some of the parts now. Shock absorber, bumper bar, radiator support, headlight cover, front left wing. This bonnet here, I managed to pick it up pretty cheap, which does have a lot of little dents in it and what have you. So I'll try and see if I can repair that. If not, then I'll need to try and get another bonnet from somewhere. I've also got these hinges here, bonnet hinges, and I've also got the wheel arch flare. Let's make a start on the car. This door, I'll probably hit that back in there and towards the wing here, and then I'll get my pullers, my glue pullers, and I'll pull this out, try and get it back into shape once I've got the fender here to line everything up. And then I might need to put a little bit of body filler just to get it back into shape. And the door there, as you can see, there's a few dinks there, a few dents. So I'll need to work on this door. I'll probably take this door off. Maybe it'll be easier to work on. First of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some measurements on the front of the vehicle here on the chassis rails. I'm just going to use a measuring tape. You're meant to use a tram gauge, but I don't actually have one of these here. So what I'll do is I'll just use the measuring tape. I'll go from one point here down to this point down there, go for this point up here, down to this point down here, and make sure the measurements are the same. If the measurements are not the same, then that'll tell me straight away that there's some movement on one of the chassis rails. And I'll just go around the vehicle and just do that everywhere, and then that way I'll know if there's any deviation in the measurements. So if I look at this inner wing here, the fender here, that's straight. Now if I go onto the left hand side here, you can see there's a gap there. So what I'll need to do, and there's a bend, there's a kink there, so what I'll need to do is straighten this up, hit that back in there, and then I'll probably need to do a little spot weld there, just to give it a bit of strength and rigidity. You can quite clearly see, just because of the impact, it's just been hit round this way. So what I'll do is I'll just heat this up slightly, and then I'll hit this back. And then what I'll do then is I'll offer up the radiator support and make sure that everything lines up accordingly. What I'll do now is I'll heat up the chassis rail here, get a bit more heat into the metal, make it a little bit more pliable, and then I'll use the hammer to finesse the chassis rail back into the straight, correct position. And all I'm doing is just comparing this chassis rail and the lip here to the other side, and just making sure that everything lines up. And what I'll do is I'll keep taking measurements until I get the threaded bolt here into the same spec as the other chassis rail. And what I'll do now is I'll just try and straighten out this part of the inner wing. I'll just need to do a bit of body work now on this. As you can see, just round about here on it to tidy it up and give it a little spray paint there. But if you compare that side now to the other side, so it's pretty much the same. I've now fitted the radiator support onto the chassis legs, and you can see this is not centralised here. None of the bolts are centralised. That should be in the centre of the hole. And then if you look at the other side as well here, it's the exact same. So pretty much needs to move over, I would say about 10 mil. So yeah, that's one of the issues when you buy accident damaged repairable vehicles. There's always some hidden damage that you don't expect. So you've just got to take it on the chin, adapt, overcome, and move on with it. And there's just a slight kink just below that bracket there, left hand side. You see there's a little bulge there. So what I'll need to do is just try and pull this chassis leg over. What I've done is I've set up the laser. So you can see here I've got the laser just below the bolt and directly in the centre. And if we come across, you can see that that bolt's in the centre of the laser. So this is going to have to come across to the right and also up slightly, so that this bolt is, the bottom of this bolt is on that line, is touching that laser line there. And also just to cross reference, you can see that the bubble here, if I lift this up, and it's in the centre, so that just proves it. It needs to come up. And now that I'm looking at it, you can actually see the chassis rail, the left hand side chassis rail, the right hand side if you're looking at it. So yeah, it's all fun and games. It's just a big learning process. But as I say, this is the thing I like doing. And hopefully I can help other people, and then other people can help me. What I've had to do is I've had to improvise and make up this tram gauge. Right, so what I'll do is I'll go into this hole here on the suspension turret. I'll go from there and I'll measure across to this bolt here, and then I'll go from this hole here in the suspension turret to this bolt here. Go into the bolt hole here, go into the threaded bolt here. Okay, so that's us got our measurement. And then what we do now is we turn it round, go into the bolt hole, go into the bolt hole here. And as you can see, this chassis leg has moved 10 millimeters over to my left. So we'll need to pull this back across and get rid of the kink. So yeah, I'm pretty disappointed about that. So hopefully I can get this pulled back out and it doesn't need to go in the jig. And there we go. So we've got a body frame repair. I think this is a 10 ton. No, No, it's a 12 ton, so it's a 12 ton hydraulic ram. So, as I say, I'll get this out of the box, get it all set up, and then hopefully this will allow me to pull the chassis leg over. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of heat onto the damaged kinked part of the wheel, and then that way it's going to be more pliable and it's going to make it obviously bend a bit easier over to the right here. So all I'm doing here pretty much is heating the weak point, the bend here in the metal, pushing it across and then massaging the metalwork, just trying to bash it back into the original position. And then that way obviously it's not going to keep wanting to go back that way. So it's just a case of heating it up, pulling it across, using the hammer and dolly, taking out all the weak parts, and then obviously reshaping everything and putting it back to how it was. Right, so what I'm doing now is I'm actually pushing off the chassis leg at the top and also the subframe. So that's giving me a little bit more strength. I'm two solid objects here, just pushing against the one at this side. The weaker point is obviously this one. It's a lot better now. I can see that one definitely moving at that side. So I say this is my first time doing this, so I'm by no means an expert. And I know there's a lot of the guys in the comments, so probably tear me a new one, but yeah. So I've actually went past now. So what I'll do is I'll give it a hit underneath, get rid of that kink, and then hopefully this, once I take the tension off of this will just come back to where this pole is, where this rod is here. Here we go again. Okay guys, and the final part now is what I'll need to do is I'll need to put the radiator support on here and make sure all the bolt holes line up. And hopefully you guys can pick that up. It's absolutely bang on now. Look at that. Perfecto. And as you can see, everything lines up now, as it should. So, the only thing I'm going to have to do now is obviously, there's some damage in here with the shock absorber or whatever it was, hit that there, so I'll need to obviously get it filled and painted. I noticed another dent, a little small dent on the chassis rail, so I decided to work on it and get it perfect. What I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to try and weld some threaded rod onto the dent there and then attach that to a puller and then try and pull it back, try and get this dent out. And if we look from the top, all the holes are all going to line up. So that proves that none of this has actually been bent out of shape. And we'll get all our shut lines and all that. We'll work on all the rame at the end. I've just quickly stuck the the bonnet on to the hinges just to make sure that this bonnet actually fits this vehicle prior to starting any work on it, any panel beating on the bonnet. So yeah. So I'm going to wrap this video up here, guys. As I say, it's took me a little bit longer than what I anticipated. So, yep, I'll see you in the next one.